The great hall of the Vereen royal palace was brighter than it had ever been. Silver banners hung from the tall walls and lights shimmered across the floor made of living crystal. Hundreds of guests stood in silence waiting for the ceremony to begin. It was not just a wedding. It was the end of a century of war. Princess Alira of the Vereen stood before the throne in her ceremonial armor. The armor was light blue, carved with symbols of peace, but her heart was restless. Her people had fought the humans for generations. Entire worlds had burned. Now she was told to marry one of them. The council said this was the only way to stop the fighting. Across the hall, Commander Rian, a human officer, waited calmly. His uniform was plain compared to the glowing robes of the Vereen nobles. He did not move, only watched the princess with steady eyes. His short brown hair and quiet face showed none of the pride or arrogance Alira expected from a soldier. He looked like a man carved from patience. When the royal speaker announced the joining of the two species, the hall filled with low murmurs. Many Vereen nobles frowned. Some humans too looked uncertain. But the ceremony continued. Alira and Rian walked to the center of the hall where a beam of light joined them. It was the ancient symbol of peace among the Vereen. Alira spoke the first vow, her voice strong though her heart trembled. I, Alira of the Vereen, promise to bind my future to the human race so that no more blood will stain the stars. Rian answered softly, and I, Rian of Earth, promise to guard this peace and honor this union until my last breath. The light between them glowed brighter. The hall erupted in applause, though it sounded more polite than joyful. The treaty between the human coalition and the Vereen Empire was now sealed. When the ceremony ended, Alira walked beside Rian through the palace garden. The air was cool, filled with glowing flowers that reacted to their movements. Rian looked around with quiet wonder. It is beautiful, he said. It is only decoration, Alira replied. Beauty does not end wars, Rian smiled faintly. No, but it reminds people what peace is for. His words were simple, yet they made her pause. Alira had spoken to many warriors, diplomats, and scholars in her life. Most filled their sentences with pride and sharp meaning. This man used few words, but each one carried weight. They stopped beside a small pool where silver fish swam in circles. Alira looked at their reflections and spoke quietly. Do you believe this marriage will truly bring peace? Rian looked at the water. Peace is not made by paper or ceremony. It begins when people decide to stop hating what they do not understand. Alira turned to him, surprised. You sound more like a philosopher than a soldier. He shrugged lightly. Maybe both. A soldier who forgets why he fights becomes only a weapon. That night, the palace held a great feast. The humans and Vereen sat at long tables, eating together for the first time in living memory. Still, tension filled the air. Every laugh felt forced, every toast rehearsed. Alira noticed how some of her own generals whispered behind her back. She could almost hear the words, traitor, weak, dishonored. Rian seemed to sense her unease. When the music began, he offered his hand. May I? Alira hesitated but accepted. They moved across the floor in slow rhythm, watched by everyone. His movements were careful, respectful. For the first time, she felt her guard lower. You dance well for someone who grew up on a warship, she said. I learn fast, Rian replied. Humans have had to learn many things quickly to survive. Alira studied his face. There was no pride there, only truth. She had read the reports about Earth, its harsh climate, its endless conflicts, and the stubborn will of its people. Now she saw that same will standing before her, quiet but unbreakable. After the feast, Rian was shown to his new quarters beside the royal wing. Alira walked with him through the long corridor lined with stars carved into the walls. You will be guarded here, she said. Some of my people still see humans as enemies. Rian nodded. I understand. It will take time. Do you not fear being surrounded by those who hate you? I have walked among enemies before. I have also seen them become friends. Fear changes nothing. Alira looked at him for a long moment. She could not tell if he was brave or simply strange. You speak as if peace is easy. Rian stopped at his door. Peace is never easy. That is why someone must protect it. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was not empty but heavy with thought. Alira realized she did not yet understand this man she had married, but she wanted to. That night, as she returned to her chambers, she stood by her window and looked up at the twin moons. The city of the Vereen Empire spread beneath her, its towers glowing like rivers of light. Somewhere below, humans and Vereen soldiers shared guard posts for the first time. She thought about Ryan's calm eyes and the quiet strength in his voice. He did not act like the proud captains she knew. There was something different about him, something steady and deep. In the days that followed, the new alliance began to take shape. Joint patrols were sent to the border, trade routes reopened, and the war fleet stood down. Still, not everyone supported the peace. Alira overheard many council members questioning the Union. Some believed the humans would betray them once their fleets recovered. Others feared the Vereen would lose their honor by joining with a younger race. Ryan listened to every concern but never raised his voice. When asked what he thought, he only said, "If we keep waiting for trust, we will never find it. We must build it." Alira began to see why his soldiers had followed him through endless battles. He led not by shouting but by example. When a Vereen worker refused to speak to him, he offered help instead of anger. When a group of human engineers were mocked for their clumsy manners, he stood beside them until the laughter stopped. One evening, Alira found him repairing a damaged training drone with his own hands. "You could order someone to do that," she said. He smiled. "If I cannot work with my hands, I forget what they are for." Alira watched him for a while, unsure what to say. She had expected a soldier made of metal and pride. Instead, she found a man made of patience and purpose. And though she did not admit it yet, she felt something shift inside her. For the first time since the war began, she believed peace might actually be possible. But far away in the shadowed edges of the Empire, old enemies watched the Union with hatred. Armies whispered of rebellion, and the stars once again began to stir with the promise of war. Months passed since the wedding of Princess Alira and Commander Ryan. The galaxy was calmer than before, yet the calm felt fragile, like glass ready to break. The human coalition and the Vereen Empire had stopped their battles, but peace was harder to keep than war. Every morning, Alira met with the Royal Council. They discussed trade routes, disarmament plans, and rebuilding destroyed colonies. The humans sent engineers and healers to help the Vereen worlds. Many citizens welcomed them, but some still looked at the humans with cold eyes. Old anger did not fade quickly. Ryan spent his days among soldiers rather than nobles. He trained both humans and Vereen side by side, showing them how to fight together. He never demanded loyalty. Instead, he earned it through action. When a training accident caused a Vereen guard to be injured, Ryan carried the soldier himself to the medbay. The guards began to whisper that the human commander had a heart stronger than steel. Alira watched his quiet influence grow. People respected him even when they doubted him. His calm words and firm nature made him different from other leaders. Still, she knew not everyone was pleased. Late one evening, Alira received a report from her advisor, Minister Dreva. The older woman looked troubled. "Princess, several border colonies refuse to accept the new joint command," Dreva said. "They say humans are taking control of Vereen space. One governor even threatened to declare independence." Alira frowned. "They are fools. Without the treaty, they would still be living under bombardment." "Fools they may be," Dreva said, "but they have weapons and followers. The council grows uneasy. Some whisper that the marriage was a mistake." The words stung. Alira kept her face calm. "Then we will show them it was not." That night, Alira visited the training ground where Ryan was sparring with a group of mixed soldiers. Under the pale lights, he moved like flowing water, every step measured and sure. When the session ended, he saw her standing at the gate. "You should rest," Ryan said as he wiped his forehead. "It is late." "So should you," Alira replied. She handed him a data pad. "There are problems at the border. Some of my people do not believe in our alliance." Ryan read the report slowly. It was expected. "Fear does not vanish because we wish it to. They plan rebellion. We cannot allow that," Ryan nodded. "Then we go there together." Alira looked surprised. "You think that is wise?" "They hate humans. If they see you, they need to see me," he said firmly. "They need to see that this peace is not weakness." A few days later, a small shuttle departed the capital. Alira and Ryan traveled to the distant colony of Ryal's Gate, a rocky world that had been the site of many past battles. As they entered orbit, the local defense fleet refused to answer their signal. Only after several warnings did the colony grant them landing permission. When they stepped onto the surface, hundreds of soldiers waited. Their leader, Commander Tarek, was a tall Varine with silver skin and cold eyes. "Princess," Tarek said, bowing stiffly, "we did not expect you to bring the human." "This human is my husband and your ally," Alira said. "You will show him respect." Tarek's expression did not change. "We respect peace, not weakness." Ryan stepped forward. "If peace feels weak to you, perhaps you have forgotten what war costs." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Tarek's jaw tightened. "We have not forgotten. We lost families while humans advanced. Now you expect us to kneel beside them." "No," Ryan said calmly. "I expect you to stand beside them." For a moment no one spoke. Alira felt tension fill the air. Then she turned to Tarek. "We did not come here to argue. We came to rebuild trust. If you have complaints, bring them to the council through the proper channels." Tarek hesitated, then gave a small nod. "As you wish, Princess." That evening, the colony held a public assembly. Citizens gathered in the open plaza, their faces full of doubt. Alira spoke first, reminding them of the long war and the lives lost. She told them of the new trade ships that would bring food and supplies. Some nodded, others turned away. When she finished, Ryan stepped forward. He looked at the crowd and spoke in a steady voice. "I am not here to rule you. I am not here to take your pride. I am here because I have seen what happens when pride burns brighter than reason. On my world, we fought each other for centuries. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Yet we learned that peace is the hardest kind of battle and the only one worth winning." The crowd was silent. Then an old Varine woman stepped forward. "And what of those who still wish for revenge?" she asked. Rian looked at her. "Then I will face them myself before I allow another war to begin." The woman bowed her head slightly. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving behind murmurs not of anger but of thought. Later, as night fell over Ral's gate, Alira and Rian stood on a high platform overlooking the colony. The stars shone cold and distant. "You spoke well," Alira said softly. "I think you changed some minds." Ryan shook his head. "Only time can do that." "But at least they listened." She turned to him. "How do you stay so calm when everyone doubts you?" He smiled faintly. "Because I have been doubted before. Humans have always been told what they cannot do. It only makes us try harder." For a moment they stood in silence. The air smelled of metal and dust. Below them the lights of the colony flickered like tiny stars. Alira felt a strange warmth in her chest. The man she had once seen as an outsider now stood beside her like an unshakable shield. But peace did not last long. The next morning, a distress signal came from the outer perimeter. Unknown ships had entered the system. The colony's scanners identified them as war cruisers carrying the mark of the Varine separatists. Tarek rushed into the command room. "They demand that we surrender the human commander or face destruction." Alira's eyes widened. "They dare attack us." Ryan stood calmly. "Then they were waiting for us to come here." "This was planned." Tarek turned to him. "If we hand you over, they may spare us." Ryan's expression hardened. "And what then?" "They will take your world next. You know that." The room fell silent. Alira felt the weight of the decision. She looked at Ryan and saw no fear in his eyes, only steady resolve. "We will not surrender," she said firmly. "We will stand together." Ryan nodded once. "Then let us prepare." Outside, the rebel fleet began to descend from orbit. The sky turned red with engines and fire. The fragile peace that had barely begun now faced its first true test. As alarms echoed through the colony, Alira looked at the man beside her and understood what her people had never known. Humans were not powerful because of their weapons. They were powerful because they refused to kneel, no matter how heavy the sky became. The morning sky over Ral's gate turned dark as the separatist fleet moved into position. Warships covered the horizon, their weapons glowing like red stars. The colony's defense systems came alive and soldiers rushed through the streets. For the first time since the wedding, Princess Alira and Commander Ryan stood together on a true battlefield. Alira wore her command armor, shining silver with blue light across the chest. Ryan's armor was human-made, heavy and battle-worn, marked by many past campaigns. The colony's walls trembled as the first missiles struck the shields. The air smelled of burning metal. Inside the command center, officers shouted orders. Screens flashed with warnings as enemy ships landed ground troops. Alira looked at Rian. His face remained calm, focused as if he had seen this chaos 100 times before. "They are landing in the southern district," said one officer. We are outnumbered 3-1. Good, Ryan replied simply. That means we will not waste time looking for them. Alira frowned. You cannot be serious. We should fall back to the main fortress. If we fall back, they will surround us. We must take the fight to them before they build a strong position, Rian said. His voice carried no fear. It was the voice of someone who already knew what must be done. Alira hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. I will lead the defense from the east wall. You take the south. Ryan looked at her with steady eyes. Stay near the command center. If something happens to you, this alliance will die. Alira wanted to argue but stopped herself. Then you come back alive, Commander. He gave a small nod. That is the plan. Ryan left with a team of mixed soldiers, both human and Vereen. The group moved fast through the burning streets. Smoke filled the air and the sound of weapons echoed like thunder. The separatist troops were already pushing forward, armored and confident. They had expected the colony to surrender easily. They were wrong. When Ryan reached the southern gate, he ordered the barricades closed. The troops around him waited nervously. He looked at them and spoke in a calm, clear voice. You have trained for peace. Today you fight to keep it. The enemy believes we will break. Show them that they are wrong. The soldiers raised their rifles and cheered. Ryan smiled slightly beneath his helmet. Then the battle began. Enemy dropships descended, unloading waves of troops and walking machines. Plasma fire lit the ground. Ryan moved like a shadow through the chaos. His armor was built to channel energy through kinetic shields, allowing him to walk through explosions and survive hits that would destroy normal men. But what made him terrifying was not his armor. It was his precision. Every shot he fired found its mark. Every movement had purpose. He did not shout orders. He led by doing. When a Vereen soldier froze under fire, Rian pulled him to cover. When an enemy mech charged, Ryan ran straight toward it, sliding beneath the giant machine, planting a magnetic charge and diving away as it exploded behind him. Alira watched the live feed from the command room. Her heart raced as she saw him move through the battlefield like a storm. One man breaking lines meant for armies. The officers around her whispered in disbelief. Is he even human? One of them said. Yes, Alira whispered. That is what makes it so powerful. Hours passed. The battle spread across the colony. Rebel forces tried to push through the southern wall again and again, but each time they met Ryan's defense. He fought without pause, without fear, as if pain meant nothing. His armor was scorched, his weapon low on energy, yet he never slowed. By midday, the separatists began to retreat. Their commander, hidden in an armored carrier, ordered an airstrike to destroy the defenders. Missiles streaked down from the sky, striking the southern gate. The explosion threw Ryan to the ground and the wall collapsed around him. Alira saw it happen on the monitor. Her chest tightened. Get me a shuttle. Now, she ordered. Her guards protested. Princess, it is too dangerous. I will not sit here while he dies, she said. She flew toward the southern district herself, her shuttle shaking from the shock waves. When she landed, the air was thick with smoke. The gate was gone. She climbed out shouting his name. For a moment she feared he was gone. Then through the smoke a shape moved. Rian walked out of the dust, his armor cracked and blackened, one arm bleeding where the plating had torn. He carried a damaged rifle in one hand and a fallen banner of the colony in the other. Alira ran to him. You are hurt. I am standing, he said, his voice calm even through the static of his helmet. That is enough. Before she could speak, another explosion sounded. The remaining enemy troops were regrouping near the ruins. Alira saw that her soldiers were exhausted, their lines breaking. Rian turned to them and shouted, Hold your ground. He picked up a fallen Vereen weapon and ran forward alone. The enemy fired everything they had, but his kinetic shield flared like a wall of light. He charged through the smoke, striking down the first line of attackers, then the next. He moved faster than the machines could track him. One by one, the enemy formations collapsed. Alira stood frozen. The sight was beyond belief. A single human tearing through ranks of trained soldiers and armored vehicles. Every step he took was a statement of defiance. When the last of the rebels began to flee, Ryan stood at the top of the ruined gate. His armor was burning in several places and his body swayed with exhaustion, yet his voice carried across the battlefield. This colony stands under the flag of peace. If you wish to destroy it, you will have to go through me. No one answered. The enemy retreated into the hills, their ships lifting off and vanishing into the clouds. The battle was over. As the sun set, Alira walked among the wreckage to reach him. The surviving soldiers gathered around, silent. Ryan's armor smoked in the evening light. He looked at her and tried to smile. "It is done," he said. She reached out and touched his shoulder gently. "You fought like an army by yourself," he shook his head. "I fought because it was the only way to keep them alive. Peace needs strength or it dies." Alira looked around at the soldiers, human and Vereen, standing together. She saw the truth in his words. His courage had done more for the treaty than any council meeting ever could. Later, as the fires cooled and medics tended to the wounded, Alira stood beside him at the top of the ruined wall. The stars appeared one by one in the dark sky. "Your people have a strange kind of strength," she said softly. Ryan looked at the stars. "It is not strength. It is choice. Humans choose to keep going even when everything says stop." She nodded slowly, understanding at last. "Then maybe that is why the galaxy fears you." "Perhaps," he said quietly. "But I hope they also learn from us." The night was silent except for the soft hum of repair drones. Ral's gate had survived. The treaty still stood, but Alira knew this was only the beginning. There would be more enemies, more doubts, and more battles to come. And beside her stood the man who would face them all without fear. The smoke over Ral's gate faded after days of repair. The colony was safe, but the memory of the battle hung heavy in the air. The soldiers spoke of Commander Rian in whispers, calling him the Iron Human. For the first time, Vereen soldiers looked at a human not with suspicion but with respect. Princess Alira moved through the city streets, helping the people rebuild. She saw Ryan often, though he said little. His armor had been destroyed in the fight and his right arm was still bandaged. Yet every day he worked beside the workers, carrying metal beams, clearing rubble, and fixing the broken defense systems. He never complained or asked for rest. One morning, Alira approached him as he repaired a damaged energy tower. "You should be resting," she said. He looked up, his hands covered in grease. "I am resting. This keeps my mind steady." "You could order others to do this," he smiled faintly. "If I order people to rebuild, I must show them how." She watched him tighten a bolt with careful precision. His quiet focus reminded her of something she had once heard from her father, that true leaders work first and speak second. "Ryan," she said softly, "that battle should have killed you. How did you survive what no one else could?" He stopped working and sat on a nearby crate. "Because humans were made to survive," he said. "That is our nature." Alira frowned slightly. "All species want to survive." "Not like us," Ryan replied. "Humans have lived through things that should have ended them. On Earth, our home, storms swallowed cities and diseases wiped out generations. We fought each other for centuries. We destroyed much of our own world, but we kept living, learning, and rebuilding." He looked out toward the horizon. "When we went to the stars, it was not because we were ready. It was because we had no choice. Survival became our history. Every human child grows up knowing that life will test them. We do not run from pain. We grow through it." Alira sat beside him. His words were quiet but filled with weight. "That is why you face those armies alone," she said. "You do not see danger the way we do." Ryan nodded. "Humans fear death, but we fear surrender more. It is what makes us dangerous to those who think we can be broken." For a long time they sat in silence. Around them, workers repaired the city, inspired by the commander's presence. A group of Vereen children ran up, curious about the human hero. One of them asked, "Commander, were you not afraid when you fought the rebels?" Rian knelt to meet the child's eyes. "Of course I was afraid. Only fools are not afraid. But courage means doing what is right even when fear is loud." The children smiled and ran off, laughing. Alira watched them go, feeling warmth in her chest. She realized that this human's calm spirit was changing the hearts of her people faster than politics ever could. Later that evening, Alira and Ryan attended a council meeting held in the restored hall of the colony. The Vereen governors and human envoys gathered around the large table. Some looked proud, others worried. Governor Tarek spoke first. "Commander Ryan, your defense saved us. We owe you our lives, but your actions have angered the separatists even more. They will strike again." "Then we will be ready," Rian replied. Tarek shook his head. "You cannot fight every battle alone. We need stronger fleets and new weapons." Ryan looked at him calmly. "Weapons will not protect us if our hearts are weak. You cannot defeat hate with fear." The room went silent. The Vereen officials exchanged uncertain glances. Alira saw how his words unsettled them because they spoke a truth few wanted to face. After the meeting, Alira walked with him through the dim corridors of the hall. "You spoke bravely," she said. "I spoke honestly," Ryan replied. "The greatest threat to peace is not the enemy outside. It is the doubt within." She stopped walking. "You believe peace can survive even after so much blood?" "I do," he said. "Because I have seen it happen. On my world, old enemies became allies. People who once fought side by side now build cities together. It is never easy, but it is possible." Alira looked at him thoughtfully. "You sound like someone who still has hope." Ryan smiled faintly. "Hope is humanity's oldest weapon. When everything else is lost, it keeps us alive." That night, Alira returned to her chamber but could not sleep. She stood by the window watching the stars. The words he spoke stayed in her mind. For the first time, she began to understand what made humans so different. They did not seek perfection. They sought progress. Over the next weeks, the alliance grew stronger. More joint patrols were formed and mixed teams of humans and Vereen guarded the borders. Stories of Ryan's victories spread across the galaxy. On Vereen worlds, children began to speak of humans not as monsters but as protectors. But while peace took root in some hearts, hatred still grew in others. Far away, hidden in the dark corners of space, the leaders of the separatist fleet gathered again. Their spies had seen what one human had done, and it frightened them. "If one man can turn a battle," said one of the rebel generals, "what will happen when more of them come?" Another replied, "Then we must strike before they do." They began to plan a full assault, one that would not only destroy Rian but also break the alliance forever. Back on Ryal's gate, Alira and Rian were unaware of the danger rising. They spent their days helping rebuild villages and teaching soldiers from both races how to work together. Alira noticed how the people trusted him, how easily he spoke with anyone, noble, soldier, or worker. One afternoon, while they walked through the training field, Alira asked, "Do you ever grow tired of being strong for everyone?" Ryan looked at her with a gentle smile. "Strength is not the same as never being tired. Sometimes strength means standing up again even when you want to rest." "You always stand," she said softly. "Because someone must," he answered. "If I stop, others may lose faith. And if faith dies, peace dies with it." Alira looked at him, understanding the burden he carried. She realized he was not just a soldier or a hero. He was a reminder of what both their species could become if they chose courage over fear. As the sun set behind the distant hills, the colony glowed with the light of repair ships and the sound of workers singing. Ryan stood on the high wall looking toward the stars where the next storm would come from. Alira joined him and said, "You once told me humans adapt. I see now that it is more than survival. It is your way of fighting the impossible." Ryan nodded. "We adapt because the universe does not care if we fail. It only tests if we will stand again." He looked at her with calm determination. "And when the next war comes, we will stand together." Alira felt the truth of his words. The peace they had built was fragile, but for the first time she believed it might last. Because humanity's greatest strength was not power or technology. It was will. As night covered the colony, a quiet breeze passed over them. The stars seemed closer than before, as if the universe itself listened to their promise. But far beyond those stars, unseen by either of them, the separatist fleets were gathering again. And this time, they would bring every weapon they had to destroy what Ryan and Alira had built. The stars over Ryal's gate were calm, hiding the storm that was coming. The alliance between humans and the Vereen had grown stronger, but far across the galaxy the separatist fleets had gathered. Dozens of rebel warlords had joined forces to destroy the peace treaty once and for all. They called their plan the cleansing. Their target was simple: Ryal's gate, the heart of the new alliance. Princess Alira received the warning first. The message came from a border scout station. "Enemy fleets detected, hundreds of ships heading toward the colony. They will arrive in 2 days." The command hall fell silent. Officers looked at her in fear. Everyone knew that their combined defense fleet was far smaller. Alira turned to Ryan, who stood beside her, calm as always. "They are coming for us," she said. "They are coming for hope," Ryan answered. "They believe if they destroy this place, they destroy the idea that humans and Vereen can stand as one. What should we do?" He looked around the room. "We fight. not to win glory but to show them that peace will not break so easily. Preparations began at once. The colony's engineers worked without sleep. Ships were armed, walls repaired, and every soldier, human and Virine, stood ready. The people no longer saw each other as strangers. They fought side by side, united by one cause. When the enemy arrived, the sky turned red again. Their ships darkened the horizon, and their voices filled the communication channels with threats. The leader of the separatists, a Virine admiral named Kale, sent a final message. "Hand over the human commander and we will spare your colony." Alira answered first. "We do not surrender our allies." Ryan's voice followed, steady and cold. "Tell your fleet that if they want me, they will have to face me." The battle began. The night sky exploded with light as thousands of missiles and plasma beams crossed paths. The ground shook with every impact. The colony's defense fleet fought bravely but was pushed back by sheer numbers. Soon, enemy dropships began landing around the city. Rian stood on the command platform, watching the tactical screens. "We cannot hold them here," an officer shouted. "Then we hold them somewhere else," Ryan said. "Pull back to the inner wall. Make them come to us." He ran to the front lines once again, his new armor freshly repaired and powered by both human and Virine technology. It gleamed silver and black under the firelight. As enemy troops marched through the outer gates, Ryan led the counterattack. The fighting was brutal. The Separatist army had machines, tanks, and thousands of soldiers. But Rian moved like a force of nature. His armor deflected their fire, and his every strike sent shockwaves through the air. He used every trick humanity had ever learned: speed, precision, and endless willpower. Alira commanded from the fortress wall, directing reinforcements. She could see him from a distance, a single figure cutting through the smoke. Each time the defenders faltered, his presence pushed them forward again. "Look at him," said one of the Virine captains beside her. "He fights like he carries the weight of all of us." "He does," Alira said quietly. "That is what it means to be human." Hours passed, and the colony shook with explosions. The rebels advanced again and again, and each time Ryan met them head-on. He fought without rest, moving from one battle zone to another. His armor was scorched, his voice hoarse, but his will never broke. Then the main enemy force arrived, a giant war mech taller than any building in the colony. Its cannons fired beams that melted through walls. The defenders began to panic. Rian looked up at the towering machine. "Target the legs," he ordered. "Bring it down." The soldiers fired, but the machine's shields held strong. Ryan ran forward alone, dodging debris and explosions. He climbed the mech's leg using magnetic clamps on his armor. Enemy fire rained down, but he kept climbing. When he reached the top, he tore open the control hatch and threw in a plasma grenade. The explosion lit the sky, and the giant machine crashed to the ground with a roar that shook the city. The defenders cheered, but Ryan did not stop. He saw that the enemy still had more ships landing beyond the hills. He turned to Alira over the comms. "They are trying to surround us. I am going to stop their advance." "You cannot face them all alone," she said. He smiled faintly. "I will not be alone. You are here." Then he ran toward the open plains beyond the colony, where the largest enemy force was gathering. Alone, he walked across the field as hundreds of rebel soldiers turned their weapons toward him. He raised the banner of the Alliance in one hand and his rifle in the other. The rebels opened fire. Energy bolts struck him from every direction, but his armor held. He moved forward step by step. When he fired, his shots were sharp and true. Each one dropped an enemy soldier. The air burned with heat, but he did not slow down. From the city walls, Alira and the defenders watched in silence. One human against an army. Every strike, every movement carried purpose. He was not fighting for power or pride. He was fighting for peace, for the right of two races to live without war. The rebels began to fall back. Their lines broke. Their courage failed. The sight of one man walking through their ranks shattered their will. Within hours, their commanders ordered a retreat. The remaining ships lifted off, leaving the battlefield covered in smoke and silence. When the firing stopped, Alira ran to him. She found him standing in the middle of the battlefield, his armor damaged and his banner still in his hand. His breathing was heavy, his face pale, but his eyes were calm. "You did it," she said, reaching him. "We did it," he corrected. "This victory belongs to everyone who chose not to give up." The soldiers gathered around them, both human and Virine, cheering together. For the first time in history, their voices joined as one. Later, as the night returned and the fires cooled, Alira and Ryan stood at the highest tower of the colony. Below them, the people celebrated. "You could have died," she said softly. Rian looked at the stars. "I was ready to. But peace must be proven. If one human must stand so others can believe, then it is worth it." She turned to him. "You changed everything, Rian. The Vereen will never see humans the same again." "I do not want them to see heroes," he said. "I want them to see partners." Alira smiled faintly. "You are more than a warrior. You are hope itself." He looked at her gently. "Hope is something all of us can carry. That is what makes us human." As dawn broke over Raal's gate, light spread across the rebuilt city. The colony stood proud, no longer divided by race or fear. Humans and Vereen worked side by side, rebuilding what war had tried to destroy. The galaxy watched in silence, realizing that one man's courage had changed history. Armies had fallen, but peace had risen, and at the center of it all stood Princess Alira and the human she had once married for duty, now bound by trust and faith stronger than any weapon. For in that moment, every world understood a simple truth. The strength of humanity was not in its power to destroy, but in its endless will to protect.